Re- Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Florence from the Institute of Banking and Finance, and we are delighted that you're able to join us this afternoon for this IBF Masterclass jointly organized with Lightbulb Capital on non-fungible tokens, or NFTs. We're glad to have with us today Sandy Oh, co-founder of Nomadism and associate instructor from Lightbulb Capital, to share her knowledge on NFTs, what makes them valuable, and the different categories of NFTs and their users. She'll also share tips on how to research an NFT project and highlight some issues, risks, and scams to look out for before taking questions from the audience via the Q&A function. Now, before I invite Sandy to share her insights, for those of you who may be unfamiliar with the IBF, allow me to do a very brief intro on the IBF and the resources we have to help professionals in the financial industry. The IBF was established by the MAS in 1974 as a training provider to provide functional trading for the financial industry. Since then, our role has evolved into one of standard setting for financial services sector's skills and competencies. In August 2018, our mandate was expanded to cover career advisory and job matching functions for the financial services sector. We were also appointed as the Jobs Development Partner for the financial services sector last year by the Jobs Development Council, and now oversee both jobs and skills development for the financial industry in Singapore. Here's a quick look at our services and how we support the industry across training, recruitment, and workforce transformation. You can find out more about any of these services and connect with us on these areas via our website. The enhanced course fee subsidies, which are part of MAS's support package to encourage companies to send their employees for training and upskilling, will continue to be in place until 30th June this year. Training costs under IBF recognized programs will be at 80% for trainees below 40, while remaining at 90% for trainees above 40, before going back down to pre-crisis levels starting from July this year. Training allowance grants support will also remain in place to encourage companies to continue sending their staff for training till June, so there is no better time to train than now. You can find more details on the enhanced training support on our website. You can also find a list of eligible training programs on the IBF Program Finder on our website. In addition, the IBF will also be supplementing the commercial training available with free webinars during this period to support the training needs of the industry. Financial professionals can also tap on the Learn at IBF mobile learning app for bite-sized learning at your own leisure. All these complimentary training are quoted with non-core CPD hours. And with that, I conclude my very short intro. I'll now hand the time over to Sandy to take us into the exciting world of NFTs. Over to you, Sandy.
Thank you. Thank you, Florence. Let me share screen. Let's start here. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Florence, just checking that my screen's being seen all right on the other side.
Yep, all good.
Okay, good. Thank you. So let me just give a very quick introduction to myself. My background is, like a lot of you in the audience, from traditional finance. I'm from the fixed income world, specifically sales of fixed income to institutional clients in Asia. So I spent over close to 18 years doing fixed income sales in various banks, including the likes of JP Morgan, where I started my career, and HSBC. So a few years after I left traditional finance, I got really interested in Bitcoin. I studied PPE, which is Politics, Philosophy, and Economics at Oxford. And so when I looked at Bitcoin through the lenses of PPE, it really appealed to me. So I went deep into the Bitcoin rabbit hole, and that kind of brought me into the crypto ecosystem. One thing led to another, curiosity got the better of me, and then I went to learn about other layer one tokens as well as their ecosystems. And then last year, when NFTs broke into popular consciousness, I dug into the NFTs as well, more from the angle of the curious and the collector, and at the same time, kind of rallying a lot of my creative friends to take a serious look at NFTs. Whereas with Bitcoin, I got into it through the lens of PPE. I would say that for NFTs, I got into it through the lens of culture. I share this with you guys because I think that whatever mental models that we have and whatever expertise that we have, it affects and it helps us relate to a new technology like NFTs. So meaning that if you're a lawyer or a technologist or an artist, you're going to have very different responses to NFTs. Your expertise will make you see both the opportunities as well as the weaknesses. And also because NFTs, the use cases are only just emerging right now. Your own personal aha moment with NFTs is also going to be different because its use case is going to pop up to you at a very specific time in a very specific way. So we have 1 hour together. How are we going to make use of it? Oh, by the way, just to put it in a context, this 1 hour webinar is a very quick high-level summary of a one-day course that we've developed for IBF, and that's in the process of being credited. And Lightbulb Capital, which I'm part of, which developed this course. We are a boutique firm that specializes in fintech and blockchain education and financial and advisory services. So during the 1 hour, we're going to start off with a very quick history of NFTs, just to put us in the context of where we are. We're going to have a quick look at what MAS said last month about NFTs. So I'm going to pick out 3 points that I thought were pertinent and interesting to delve a little bit deeper into. Then we're going to go into what NFTs are. And we're going to look at what's the N, what's the F, and the T's in the NFTs. After we've got a very solid understanding of what an NFT is, then we ask the question, what makes NFTs valuable and desirable? To answer this question, we're going to have a few building blocks that we'll use. And then after tackling that question, we're going to look at the different categories of NFTs. I think at the moment, mass media is spending a lot of time talking about art NFTs, but they're actually more than art NFTs to NFTs. So we're going to take a very quick look at the other types. We'll have also a very quick overview on how you research NFT projects. What are the steps involved? What are the things you have to look at? Issues, risks, and scams are a major part of NFTs because they are rife with problems. So we'll have a look at that as well. And then we'll round up everything by speculating and thinking about the future of NFTs. And then once I'm done, we'll have a Q&A session, and Florence will be taking, if you have any questions during my presentation, do feel free to type into the Q&A tab of your control panel. Right, okay, we'll start out with a very quick history of NFTs. So the very first blockchain that was built was the Bitcoin network, and Bitcoin was built in 2009. So it's not surprising that the first NFTs were experimented on the Bitcoin network. So we had colored coins in 2013, and those green-looking frogs, which are affectionately known as rare pepes, that were minted on Bitcoin in 2016. Ethereum came next after the Bitcoin blockchain. So Ethereum was created in 2015. So NFT experiments on Ethereum started in 2017. So CryptoKitties was actually the first major NFT project that gained a lot of popularity. There was not as much traffic on Ethereum at that time, but still the popularity of CryptoKitties put a traffic jam on the Ethereum blockchain. In the same year, in 2017, Cryptopunks were actually minted. I'm sure a lot of you would have heard of Cryptopunks by now, but in 2017, they were less well known in the wider audience, but they were actually minted in that year. It really was in 2021 that NFT really burst onto the scene, and we heard so much about it. Bored Ape Yacht Club is arguably the second most famous NFT art project after CryptoPunks, and they were created in 2021. And come this year, 2022, it's NFT has really hit mainstream in many ways. So let's look at what MES said about NFTs. This is not the comprehensive statement. I've only picked 3 points to draw your attention to. Let's start off with the point on the left, where we are talking about the speculative nature of NFTs. We were very much agree that NFT is a very speculative asset class. In fact, in our class, which is targeted towards people who are actually approaching NFTs for the first time. Oh, by the way, I think during the course of this 1 hour, I will also drop in some common NFT lingo, and I'll explain to you what the lingo means, because NFT culture is very unique and they have their own lingo as well. So when you actually delve into the NFT world, you have to know some of this lingo. So I was going to say, in NFT world, there's a term called normie, N-O-R-M-I-E. It just means normal people. So i.e. people who have not dabbled in crypto or NFTs. What we recommend for any normie who is thinking about NFTs for the first time is to treat it as highly speculative, which means that you won't take money out of your real life budget or your real investment budget to go buy an NFT. In fact, you're taking it out of your entertainment budget. And because NFTs are so risky, you really have to be thinking in your mind, if this NFT that I buy goes to zero, will it impact my life and will it impact my emotional well-being? If it does, that means your allocation is probably too high for you. The second point, which is the one in the middle, NFT at the moment is not structured to represent rights to a portfolio of listed shares. So because of that, it's not being regulated by MES at the moment. Just to watch this space, because it's a developing space. And for example, there's a lot of NFT creators that are trying to create utility for the NFT owners. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to create cash flows to the NFT token owners. We see some of that already happening in music NFTs, where music NFT token holders are entitled to a percentage of the streaming royalty of the musician. The US SEC, the Securities Exchange Commission, have recently also come out to say that they're keeping an eye on the NFT space because there's so much financialization of NFTs. For example, there's something now called fractionalized NFTs. What does that mean? It means that the NFT, one valuable NFT, one CryptoPunk, for example, is broken up and fractionalized into smaller parts so that it can be sold to a bigger number of investors. So something to keep an eye on, because financialization of NFTs is happening. The third point on the right, which the MES is very astute to warn people who want to get involved in NFTs, is to clarify your right of ownership and the legal framework that govern your rights. Every NFT project has its own token ownership rights. They can do whatever they want with it, and they can change it in however way they want. Just a case in point, I mentioned CryptoPunks and Bored Apes just now when we're looking at the history of NFTs, the two most famous art projects. When CryptoPunks was created in 2017, they did not give CryptoPunk owners commercial rights to the punks. That's actually quite normal. Bored Apes, when they launched in 2021, they gave all their Bored Ape owners commercial rights to their Bored Ape. So what does this mean? It means that if you own a Bored Ape, you can actually build a brand on your Bored Ape. So that was always a very interesting differentiator between the two projects. But most recently, and this is like breaking news in NFT world over the weekend, the Bored Ape creators bought over the CryptoPunk portfolio. And the first thing they did was they gave all CryptoPunk owners commercial rights to their CryptoPunks. This just shows that your token ownership rights can vary between project to project, and even within the same project, it's very fluid. It can change very quickly. So that's something you want to bear in mind when considering getting involved. This is like a fun slide, and this is to debunk the most common complaint that non-NFT believers have against NFT subscribers. It's called the right-click save fallacy. So for example, if you see on the screen grab of the handphone, that's a tweet from Market Rebellion. So Market Rebellion is a market research company. They sell market research on traditional asset classes to retail. And so they tweeted, Justin Bieber bought this NFT for $444,000. We posted this picture of the same NFT for free. So basically what they're trying to say is, we right-click save this NFT for free. So why is Justin Bieber paying $444,000 for it? In a way, it's kind of like saying, why do you pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for your Patek Philippe watch when you can buy a fake one, for a fraction of it? So if you look at the reply tweet below from Alex, and Alex is a CEO of a blockchain data analytics company that's based in Singapore. He also tracks a lot of NFT wallets, whale wallets, etc. So his sarcastic reply was, wow, clever. Please accept my tip, which is a right-click save of a $10 bill. So this right-click save phrase has been so used and abused that NFT community has decided to claim it as their own and use it in a very satirical, ironical way. So much so that in November last year in Singapore, there was a huge NFT art exhibition, and they called it the Right-Click Save Art Exhibition. So my hope is that if nothing else, in this 1-hour webinar, you'll walk away at least not subscribing to this fallacy of right-click save. Right, okay, now let's get down to the understanding and breaking down the N, the F, and the T in the NFT. Because I am dealing with a mostly financial crowd, I assume that most of you would know what fungibility is. Fungibility means mutual interchangeability. A good is fungible if one unit of it is always interchangeable with another unit of the same good. Okay, that sounds pretty straightforward. If this is fungibility, then non-fungibility is quite simple. It just means the opposite. It just means it is unique and non-interchangeable. Okay, so next I'm going to test whether my assumption of your understanding of fungibility and non-fungibility is correct. I'm going to get Florence's help in this. So what's going to happen over the next 7 slides specifically, I'm going to show you a slide of a thing, and then I'm going to ask you whether this thing is fungible or not fungible. And in your panel, you have a raise hand function. So I'm going to ask participants to raise hands to my question. Okay, so like if I say my question and you think you agree with me, you raise your hand, and then Florence will help us get a feel of what your answers are. All right, cool. Let's go. So Lego blocks of the same color and the same size. If you think this is non-fungible, raise your hand. Florence, are you seeing anything?
Yes, at the moment we have 14 out of 318 people thinking that it's non-fungible.
It's non-fungible, interesting. Okay, but the majority is right. It is fungible. Because if you think about it, if I give you a box of Lego blocks that are same color and same size and same condition, then you won't mind one block from the other, which means they're fungible. Yeah? Okay. So let's go with the next slide. An architectural building. Raise your hands if you think this is non-fungible.
Okay, the number is at about 136 or so out of
Great.
318.
Great, you're correct. Because an architectural house is unique and you can't easily swap it for another. So non-fungible is the correct answer to this. Very good. Let's look at the next slide. Bitcoin. Okay. Raise your hands if you think Bitcoin is fungible.
About 120 people out of 318 think that it's fungible.
Okay, at least half. It's debatable, and we will talk about it later. I would say that commonly we would accept that Bitcoin is fungible, but we'll talk about it more later. Okay. Yayoi Kusama's yellow pumpkin on Naoshima, sadly, it was blown off in a typhoon last year. How many of you think this is fungible? Remember, fungible means it's interchangeable. Good. I'm seeing very low count.
Yes,
I'm seeing a very low
15.
count on this. Yeah. So the correct answer is this is non-fungible. So most of you who didn't put up your hand, you're correct. All right. What about Elon Musk's Twitter handle? Raise your hands if you think this is non-fungible. I can tell from the momentum that most of you think this is non-fungible. That's about at least 145.
Yes.
Yeah. So you're right. This is non-fungible. And just to bear in mind as well, besides the differentiator of whether they're fungible or non-fungible, there's also the other element of whether they're physical or digital. So in the case of Elon Musk's Twitter handle and Bitcoin, they're digital assets. Elon Musk's Twitter handle is a non-fungible digital asset, whereas Bitcoin is a digital fungible asset. The other examples of the Lego and the architectural house and the yellow pumpkin, they are physical assets of both the digital and of both the fungible and the non-fungible realm. All right, next one. This will appeal to the commodities people in the audience probably. Gold, same weight, same purity, fungible. Those of you who think this is fungible, raise your hands. Okay, interesting. We're getting about 100 and close to 170, which seem to indicate that most of you, at least those of you who have been putting up your hands, think that this is fungible. If you think about it, if you go and check the prices of these two things on a Bullion Star website, or you go to a gold shop, they're actually not the same price. There will be slight variations in the price of these gold bars. So they're not totally fungible. And one of the reasons is that the reputation of the refineries actually affect the price. Now, some of these refineries are accredited by LBMA, the London Bullion Market Association. So those refineries that are accredited by LBMA have to go through a accreditation process. So they're perceived to be higher quality. So actually, even with gold, which is a commodity, there are differences in price depending on where they've come from. So something to think about. Now, what about $1 American cash bills. Those of you who think this is fungible, please raise your hand. This is the last example. Okay, about 150. So I would say also pretty strong conviction amongst us that this is fungible. And frankly, to be honest, money usually, typically, for convenience as well as common shared beliefs, is treated in a fungible way. You know, you can use your, you know, if you go and use this in anywhere in the States, or you'll be accepted. But let me give you some questions to think about though. Like, what if you go to Starbucks in Singapore and you try to pay for your coffee with a $10 bill, but your $10 bill is torn? Will the barista just take your $10 bill, or will she reconsider because she doesn't think it's perfect? Another question to think about is, what if you show up at DBS with a bag full of cash, $1 million full of cash? Will the nice officer at DBS just take your cash and say, okay, no problem, I'll take your money and open an account for you? Or what if you try to wire money now to a Russian bank? You know, will it go through? So I guess with these examples, I'm trying to show you that usually money is fungible, but because of AML, anti-money laundering practices, because of KYC, and also because now, if we think about current environment with sanctions is actually affecting a lot of things that are fungible. So it does lead us to the question, is fungibility actually binary or on the spectrum? You know, is it so straightforward that something is just fungible or non-fungible? It probably isn't, because if you think about it now, I mean, case in point, like if you try to wire money to a Russian bank, you're probably going to have a lot of problems. Even though oil is in high demand now, and oil is a commodity, I don't think Russian oil is going to be treated fungible with other types of oil. So if you think about it, most things in life are actually not fungible. I mean, just going away from sanctioned objects and thinking about something as simple as, say, movie tickets. So movie tickets are usually also at the same price. But let's say if you prefer to sit at the back of the cinema for a better view of the movie rather than the front. So then you won't treat a seat in the front as totally fungible as a seat in the back. So in real life, fungibility really is a spectrum rather than the binary concept. And this is something to bear in mind because it's more representative of reality. It's also actually relevant in token standards. We don't have time to go into it in this 1 hour class, but in the 1 day class, we delve into the different token standards that correspond to different levels of fungibility in the Ethereum token standards. Okay, so now I think we've spent enough time, and I think you should understand fungibility and non-fungibility. We are going to tackle the question of what is the token in non-fungible token? I'm going to drop another NFT lingo here now. So in NFT lingo, there's something called IRL. IRL stands for in real life. It just means anything in the physical world. Another term that we use besides IRL is meat space. So meat space is spelled as MEAT, meat space. So I'm going to use an example from IRL to explain the concept of token in non-fungible token. All right. So my example from IRL is home ownership, because we're all familiar with property ownership. So in property ownership, we have the asset, which is the house or your apartment. We have the house title, which is your legal proof of ownership of the asset. Now, in Singapore and in developed countries, you know, we are very used to having a well-functioning legal code for ownership rights. So in that kind of environment, the house title is actually very, very important. But it's also important to remember that not all countries have a well-functioning legal code for ownership rights. Yeah. And then, of course, in the third column, we have what we call the house address and the description of the house. So just kind of put this analogy in the back of your mind, and I'm going to explain to you now what the token is in the NFT. This is a Mutant 8, one of my favorites. So this is Mutant 8 Yacht Club number 14452. You can see the title of this NFT on the left-hand side. Now, what is the token? Okay, so if we look under the details section, now the details section is a screen grab that I took from OpenSea. OpenSea is a NFT marketplace. It's the biggest volume NFT marketplace currently. And when you go into OpenSea, if you look at any NFT in OpenSea, they will have a section called details, and the details will give you this kind of details about the NFTs. Where I want to draw your attention to is the line that says token ID. So you see there's token ID 14452. Now you see that 14452 corresponds to the Mutant 8 Yacht Club 14452. The creator has just decided to name the token ID 14452. And this basically is the token in the NFT. Yeah, that's the token. Now, if we look above and you see Etherscan, what's Etherscan? So Etherscan is the blockchain explorer for Ethereum. So Ethereum, the blockchain, has many transactions happening on it. And because the blockchain is transparent, what you do if you want to look for transactions on the blockchain, you go into what they'll call a blockchain explorer. And so Etherscan is the blockchain explorer for Ethereum. Okay, so let's look at this particular transaction. Now, this particular transaction, you will see the line that says sale one NFT for 4.8 Ether on OpenSea. So this means that this particular NFT was sold for 4.8 Ether on the OpenSea platform. The second line, you see transfer of Mutant 8 Yacht Club from 0xFD blah 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 to 0x3C6A blah blah blah. Now, what are those two things? Those two things are basically public addresses of wallets, of crypto wallets. So what this is showing is that this Mutant 8 was transferred from one particular wallet, specifically the wallet 0xFDB, and is being transferred to 0x3C6. And what's being transferred is the line below, which is the token ID 14452. That's the thing that's happened in this transaction. Yeah, so actually this transaction was, the buyer of this was the retired NBA star called Shaq O'Neal. And this was when he bought this NFT. All right, so remember the house analogy that we had earlier? Now we're just going to draw a parallel to NFT ownership. I want to say with a caveat that when I use analogies to explain something, the analogies have their limitations as well as their uses. It's very good as a tool to explain a more complex subject. However, because the situations we're comparing are not identical, there's obviously not going to be a perfect comparison. But for the sake of explaining ownership, I think it does the job. Right, okay. So when you have NFT ownership, you have the art or the creative expression on the left. And remember what we had in the real life example was a physical asset. In this example is a digital asset, right? And then we move to the middle, which is your token of ownership. And we see now that your token of ownership is reflected by the blockchain identifier. And if you remember in the IRL example, it was the house title. On the right-hand side, we have the metadata for the NFT. So the metadata basically contains the location of where the art is stored, as well as the description of the art. So essentially, this is what happens under the hood of NFT ownership. All right, so I think now we have tackled the question of what's in the N, what's in F, and what's in the T. But now we have to ask the question, what makes NFTs valuable and desirable? And to answer this question, I think I want to go back to the house analogy again and ask the question. So why is owning the land title valuable? There's a book called The Mystery of Capital by this economist, Hernando de Soto. The book came out in 2003. He's a Peruvian economist. And in this book, he was trying to find out the difference between developed and developing economies and why there's a difference in performance between developed and developing economies. And his main thesis is that without an integrated formal property system, a modern market economy is inconceivable. So his thesis is that we need a properly functioning property system with a properly functioning legal code to be the foundation for a strong market economy. Now, as we increasing, if property ownership is such a key component to build on, now that we are spending more and more time and money and resources in the digital world, then the question becomes, how do we prove our ownership in the digital world? And I would say that NFTs is one solution, it's an early solution to proving ownership through tokens on the blockchain in the digital world. So we know what contains value, but we now next have to ask the question, what gives value to something? So we tackle the question of value and how do we give value to what creates value in our society? If we look on the left-hand side, I would say that what we value very much depends on the prevailing culture, beliefs, biases, and ethics that govern that society. So for example, if you live in a society where wealth is valued as a sign of success, then display of wealth is encouraged and accepted. And I think we're all familiar with this in Singapore or in America. My business partner spent a lot of time in Holland and she shared with me her experience in Holland. So in Holland, it's very bad to incite jealousy amongst family and friends. And we know that one of the things that really incite jealousy is wealth inequality. So in Holland, people who are rich do not display their wealth because it's not seen to be positive for society and is seen to be very crass behavior. So what's the relationship between value and status? Now, what we value will determine what we use to convey status. So going back to the example of Singapore and America, in societies that value wealth, then to signal status, it's very acceptable for you to own and to display physical objects that connote status. Now, as we move increasingly to a digital world, it's very, very believable that we're now going into the territory where we're using digital objects as a sign of status. Let's dig a little bit deeper into value and status now. Now, what's value? This quote is from an Austrian economist called Ludwig von Mises. He's a very popular philosopher in Bitcoin world, probably less so in conventional. If you study economics at university, I studied economics in Oxford and Chicago and never came across him. I thought this quote from him is really, really good. So he says, Value is not intrinsic, it is not in things. It is within us. It is the way in which man reacts to the conditions of his environment. Now, my 3 takeaway points from this quote are, number 1, value is not intrinsic in things. Number 2, we are the ones who ascribe value to things. And number 3, we change our valuation according to our environment. Let me give you an example from meat space. Let's look at the bluefin tuna. So before the 1970s, bluefin tuna was worth nothing. In fact, American fishermen who were catching bluefin tuna off the Pacific Ocean, they used to have to pay to get it dumped. Now, since then, over the decades, for technological, sociological, economic, and culinary reasons, the bluefin tuna is now elevated to a delicacy. There's actually a whole book that's written on this process. It's called The Sushi Economy. Now let's take an example from, this is an example from real world. We take an example from the digital world. Let's look at Cryptopunks. If you remember, I mentioned to you that Cryptopunks was created in 2017. And the creators of Cryptopunks was these 2 guys. They were called Lava Labs. They created 10,000 Cryptopunks. They kept 1,000 for themselves, and the other 9,000 were free for anyone who bothered to go and claim it from the Ethereum blockchain. Now, there was not a lot of it on Ethereum blockchain then, so paying gas fees to claim your free CryptoPunk wasn't a very expensive exercise at that time. So let's look at how the valuation of CryptoPunks have changed since then. Let me draw your attention to the left-hand side, and let's go right down to the bottom row where it says claimed. So this person called Straybit, this wallet called Straybit, claimed this particular punk on the 23rd of June, 2017. Now you can see, and this is all happening on the blockchain. That's why you can see a record of it. You know, people are trying to bid for it at $56, $53, $104, and on and on and on. Until 10th of July, 2017, someone bid for $1,646, and Straybit sold it to this wallet, 0x00B278. Now, he must have thought he did a really good trade because, you know, he made over $1,000 in less than a month. There were more trades then, but I'll run out of space to show you. But let's just fast forward to 2021. The same punk was sold at Sotheby's for 11.7 million. So, you know, we're seeing the changing attitudes to value like we did with Bluefin tuna. You know, this punk that was free when it was created is now worth over 11 million. Now, it may not stay at 11 million, it may go higher, it may go lower, we don't know. You know, the market's constantly reevaluating their valuation. So the other thing that we touched on earlier was status. So what is status? How is it relevant in this whole understanding of NFTs? Now, status means one's position in society. This is a quote from a book called The Status Game, written by Will Storr. It's a very good book. It looks at all our behavior through the eyes of status signaling. And he says, we play for status, if only subtly, with every social interaction, every contribution we make to work, love, or family life, and every internet post. Meaning that everything we do, whether consciously or unconsciously, intentionally or unintentionally, we are actually doing it for status. And this is something that we've been doing since we're children. It's not something that we're only doing after we turn into adults. We do it since we're kids. And also status signaling, it can lead to good things and bad things. So how do we signal status. We do it through primarily two ways, through objects and behavior. So if we look on the left-hand side, I think these are objects of status that we're all very familiar with. Your, Louis Vuitton bags, or your special edition Nike with LV sneakers. That's in the physical world. Now in the digital world, Cryptopunks and Bored Apes are the new status symbol in the digital world. We can also signal status through behavior, through philanthropy, through giving money to causes. So this example of Guggenheim Museum, he's accumulated so much wealth that, he can actually support the arts and have a museum named after him. We can also signal behavior through taking care of the environment, virtual signaling, not using plastic bags. That's also a form of status signaling. So I think now we have all the components to answer the question, what makes NFT valuable and desirable? We all accept that, the digital economy is growing. We're spending a lot more time and resources within the digital space, within the metaverse. And within this digital space, we really need to have a means to own things and to transfer them and to trade them. So we need to prove authenticity and scarcity. And so proof of ownership via NFTs on the blockchain is a possible solution. The third point is we are gathering a kind of collective and social congruency on value. So the crypto natives are those who, are very comfortable and familiar with the idea that value can be captured digitally. I mean, they're the ones, who are OG. OG is another term in the crypto world. It stands for original gangsters. So they are basically the early adopters, and the early ones who have come in and participated or bought tokens in a very early stage. So a lot of these crypto natives, crypto OGs, they actually are very early supporters of NFTs. And they're the ones who are now, in a way, new tastemakers in the cultural world, very different from traditional art collectors. And there's a whole new class of them that's doing it. The fourth factor that makes NFT valuable is the direct relationships that it gives between creators and supporters. Now, if you are a creator who wants to minimize the number of middlemen between you and your supporter, then NFTs is your way to go direct to your supporter. With NFTs, you can also control the royalties that you set for your creation. So within the platforms, the NFT platforms, there are means for you to set royalties such that every secondary trade of your creation goes back to you, which is very different from the current situation. Right, let's move on to the next slide. So what are the different types of NFTs and what do they entitle you to? Now, we start from the left column. And as I was saying, I think most of you would have read in mainstream media, the most well-known and earliest use of NFTs is in art. PFP, you want to remember this acronym. It basically means profile picture. So, so those popular NFT projects like Cryptopunks and Bored Apes are considered PFP art projects. So within art also, you have the one-on-one, which is like special, unique art pieces. You have generative art, which really is art that is created by code. And it's a whole subcategory in itself. It's actually very, very beautiful, some of this generative art. We have music, and musicians are actually really experimenting a lot with using NFTs. They have used NFTs to link it to physical paraphernalia. They have used NFTs to link to streaming royalties. They have also used it as a form of direct contact between themselves and the supporter. Fashion NFTs is another area, and the fashion brands have been very innovative and experimenting with different things. For example, Adidas. Adidas was probably the the first early fashion brand that incorporated NFTs and experimented with them. And if you own the NFTs, you're entitled to special physical merchandise. LV, Louis Vuitton also experimented with NFTs using a mobile game, and they were hiding NFTs in the mobile game for the players to discover. Gaming NFTs is huge. Some of you may already have heard of this very popular game called Axie Infinity. The volume of it is so big that it's just number 2 or number 3 behind OpenSea. That's how big it is. And Axie Infinity really started this phenomenon called play to earn. And in a lot of the developing countries in Southeast Asia, like Philippines and Indonesia and Thailand, in countries where the regular wages are low anyway, there are people who are making more money playing Axie Infinity to fund their real life expenses. So along with it, it's a whole big virtual economy that's happening in gaming NFTs. Activism is another way that people are using NFTs to raise money for different causes, and it could be political cause, it could be social cause, or even environmental cause. All right, so just as we have so many different types of NFT categories, I also wanted to show you that there's actually a variety of blockchains that facilitate NFT creation. And on those blockchains, there are different platforms as well. So Ethereum is the dominant one at the moment because they were the first, one to come on after Bitcoin. So that's why if you look on the first row, you see like OpenSea and a sample of other NFT platforms over there. I would say that OpenSea is a little bit like eBay, so you get everything. It's not curated. So if you wanted a more curated experience, you might go for Foundation or Super Rare. If you wanted generative art, then you go with Art Blocks. Right. Now, how do you assess an NFT project? These are like the big steps, which we don't have time to delve into, but what we do is you have to look at the project history and mission. You have to look at the team. Who's in the team is very important now because there's so many scam and rug pull. Rug pull is another term that's used in NFT. Rug pull means literally you have the rug pull from under you, which means that the founder team made off with the investor money. So you really need to research the team. And usually now, if it's an anonymous team, it's not a good sign. Community is very important in NFT project. How do you get a sense of the community? You have to spend a lot of time on Discord and Twitter. What's Discord? Discord is this, it's a messaging platform that allows for many subgroups to talk to each other within one platform. So for those of you who are familiar with Discord, I think you know what that is. For those who don't, it's a messaging and communication platform. And if you want to get to the heart and soul of any project, you have to get to their Discord server. And that's where you get the sense of community. Roadmap. The roadmap basically is, the team, when they launch a project, they share with everybody their roadmap of events and activities that they plan. And so you need to kind of chart the progress of the roadmap and see how the team is performing to the roadmap. The last thing is social, and social will incorporate everything that's happening in both Discord and Twitter and just generally on the internet. What are people saying about the project? There's actually a few more points besides this, but again, that's a deeper level that we go into in the class. Now, let's look at issues and risks of NFTs because there are many problems and issues and risks. NFTs are not liquid. And those of you who are from markets, you know that if you trade liquid stocks and bonds, there's always a bit of a spread that you can count on. Because NFTs are non-fungible, there's no ready bit of a spread. It's like if you're trying to sell your apartment or your house, you have your offer price for your apartment. It doesn't mean that there's a ready buyer. Someone has to come meet your offer, right? So the parallel in NFT is there is a thing called the floor price. If you're going to OpenSea and you look at an NFT project, there's always a floor price for a project. The floor price means that is the lowest item from that collection that's being offered in the market. It doesn't mean it trades there, but it just tells you what the lowest price is. So yeah, NFTs are not very liquid. Volatility, as I was saying, there's some NFTs that you can get rugged on, so it can go to zero. But even if you don't get rugged, it's very common for NFTs to trade, 20 to 80% in a day or two. So it's really for a certain type of risk appetite. In terms of regulation, currently on most of the centralized NFT platforms, they don't do KYC. You connect your crypto wallet to OpenSea, and that's all they have. They have your wallet address. Energy consumption is one thing that's been raised as a problem of NFTs, because a lot of the NFTs is now created on Ethereum, and Ethereum is still a proof of work chain, and proof of work consumes more energy than proof of stake chains. So yeah, energy consumption is one of the issues that's raised by ESG concerned people. Legal issues are aplenty in NFTs. There's a lot of copyright theft. There's a lot of trademark infringements that are being tested at the moment. In the one-day class, we look at, like, for example, at the moment, Nike is suing one of their resellers for trademark infringement for using, or rather for NFTing some of their Nike shoes. We've got Miramax that's suing Quentin Tarantino because he's trying to NFT the paper-written script that he has for Pulp Fiction. So I think lawyers will have a field day with NFTs because things are being tested, boundaries are being tested, and I think this is a developing space to know where things stand with NFT legal rights. Wash trading. What's wash trading? So wash trading is when a particular entity buys and sells the same asset to and fro to give the impression of inflated volume and price. So wash trading is illegal in traditional markets, but at the moment, NFT wash trading is still in very murky area and not yet subject to enforcement action. And there is very, very conclusive data that wash trading is actually rife on NFT platforms. So this is a huge problem because it affects the regular person who will get a very wrong idea of what the real price is of an NFT project if they want to buy it. Scams and security risks, there are so many of it, which is another reason why we say if you're a normie wanting to buy an NFT for the first time, take it out of your entertainment budget, because it is so easy to lose your NFT this way. There are impersonators who will hang around in Discord channels and Twitter channels pretending to be customer support, or they pretend to be part of the project team, and they get you to compromise your wallet security, and before you know it, they've cleaned up your wallet of your NFTs and your tokens. The thing about these scams, how they work, is that they tap into your greed and your FOMO inclinations. NFT is very fast, it's very impulsive, and these are really our weak behavioral traits as human beings. And so these scams work because they're trying to tap into your greed and FOMO inclinations. Right, getting to the end of it. Right, let's look very quickly at how NFTs have evolved so far. On the left, we start with, there have already a couple of websites that now allow you to use your NFT as collateral to borrow crypto. So this nifty website, they allow you to, it's peer-to-peer and it's decentralized. So it's not like a central exchange. So there needs to be someone another peer on the other side who wants to borrow your NFT and lend you the crypto for this to work. So yeah, you can deposit your valuable NFT and borrow crypto against it as collateral. NFT, decentralized autonomous organization. Now, the DAO, some of you may have heard of it already. DAO, which is a decentralized autonomous organization, is a very, very new and fascinating form of organizing people. In comparison to a traditional company, the DAO is flat and they use smart contracts to automate decisions. So this particular DAO, which is called Flamingo, is set up just to collect NFTs. It's a very famous DAO, and they collect some real serious valuable NFTs. Now, the third thing here, fractionalized NFT, I alluded to in the beginning. I was saying that the SEC is now looking at fractionalized NFT as more closely. But basically, it allows you to own small parts of an NFTs if you don't have the means to buy one whole NFT. Right. Okay. So I know my 1 hour is coming by, so I'm just going to wrap up as quickly as I can. So we started with NFT in the middle, and we've seen now how NFT is disrupting art first, but it's also going around the blue circle and disrupting music. We've seen how brands now are paying attention to how to use NFTs. We've seen it being connected to physical assets. We've seen now how some activists are using NFTs to raise money for their various causes, and also how gaming has incorporated NFTs into it. And through the blue circle, which is the media and the mechanism, the impact that we're feeling is on the outermost circle, which is like through our identity. I mean, there is now NFTs. So like, for example, there's one Twitter account I follow, which is called Punk6529. This identity, I don't know whether it's the he or she or they. We don't know their real identity, but the identity is based on Cryptopunks6529. And through this identity, they've collected a following of nearly 500,000 or something. And it's quite the authority in what the identity says. We've seen how now NFTs have become part of our signaling status methodology. We're using NFTs now to signal status. And it's not just through buying very expensive CryptoPunks. I mean, when you talk about like activism NFTs, there are people now who are buying activism NFTs and signaling that, look, I'm supporting this cause. I'm supporting the cause of the New York Food Bank because when I bought this NFT, all the proceeds went to the New York Food Bank. So things like that. On the top where it says community and belonging, some of these NFT projects, the community is so strong that in an individual's identity, they actually identify with that group, with that tribe. It's become a part of tribal identity, for better or for worse. And so on it goes, like, around the circle, we've got future workforce, as I was saying. People now are making money through playing games with NFTs as a form of work. And so I think NFTs actually opens up a lot of different opportunities in terms of how we think about work. All right. This is just a Pac-Man inspired NFT system maps that we created. And I just wanted to show like the process of what happens if you're a collector and a creator, the micro steps that happens. If we look at the right-hand side, if you're a collector, so what happens in our class is, we kind of ask you the questions. If you want to collect NFT, why do you want to buy this NFT? Is it to support a cause? Is it because you love the NFT? Is it because you want to make money? What exactly is your intention when you buy an NFT? Now, if you're clear on your intention and you have done your research according to those steps that we've taught you, then these are some of the micro steps that one has to go through. You have to get your crypto wallet. And then if you're buying very valuable NFTs, you also want to get your hardware wallet so that you keep your valuable NFTs in the hardware wallet. Then you need to think about, which marketplace you want to go shopping in. If you want to buy at a primary market, then you go to the project website, because when a project drops their project for the first time, they do it on their own website and you mint there. We also go through the concepts of what are gas fees. Gas fees are very, very critical when you want to get involved in it, because depending on if you're using Ethereum can get very expensive depending on the traffic in the Ethereum blockchain. So yeah, these are some of the things we go through in more detail in the one-day version. Right. Okay. I think I've come to my 1 hour, and I will now open it to the floor. And Florence probably has is checking the Q&A and might have some Q&A for me.
Yep. The questions were coming in quite strongly, and we have 12 open questions at the moment.
Okay.
So the first one is from an anonymous attendee. She'd like to know whether the NFT market is quite flat right now. So some would argue that's even in a bear market. So how do you navigate the NFT space during such periods? What projects are you looking at in particular that are good long-term plays?
Okay, so if I paraphrase the question is, how do you research projects in a bear market? Is that how do you research projects in the bear market, and what kind of things are you looking at? Right? What kind of projects am I looking at? Is that the question?
Yeah, good long-term plays, yes.
Okay, so I think we will go back to, oops, let me try to go back to this, this one. To be honest, sometimes it's good that it's in a bear market for most things, because in a hyped up market, projects will sell for very high prices. And the other thing as well that's very high are gas fees. When you actually set up your wallet and you go through the process of trying to buy things, you'll notice that there's gas fees for everything you do. So what are gas fees? Basically, gas fees are charged by the Ethereum blockchain. They're not charged by the platform. So every interaction you have with the Ethereum blockchain requires gas fees. Okay, so in a very hot environment, both the project and the gas fees are high. And also you feel very FOMO, so you will end up buying a lot of things. So how do you research a project? It's through these steps, basically. You will hear about projects through various sources. It could be, you could be hanging around on Twitter. It could be reading NFT newsletters. I have a list of suggestions as to where you can research NFT projects. So you hear about a project, and then you have to decide for yourself. Okay, first of all, why am I attracted to this project? Go back to the question as like, if you're buying it for the first time, you really have to ask yourself, do I love this project, and why does this project resonate with me, right? If it resonates with you at some level, then you go and do your own research. And to do your own research, you go through this pretty, depending on how deep you want to go into it, you can, you go through these steps. And the thing about researching on team, right, as I said before, if it's an anonymous team, nowadays it's not a good sign, because it means that it's possible that they can do a rug pull and disappear because you can't find them. It wasn't like that in the past, because if you think about the creators of Bored Apes, we still don't know who the creators are, but the project is super successful. But I would say that now, to be on the safe side, you want to only look at projects that have a known team. And when you look at, so how do you get to know the team? You go to their official website and you look at their profile. Now, sometimes the profile will bring you to LinkedIn. Sometimes they only bring you to their Twitter profiles. Then you go into their Twitter profiles and you see what they've been saying. What have they been tweeting about? And then you go and see what they've done before. You really have to get a strong sense of the team experience and the ethics. Have they done dodgy things in the past or not? Have they executed successfully in the past? So a strong team, I would say, is quite an important component. Then if you have a strong team, then there's a better chance that they build a strong community. Why do I say the community is important? The community is the one that will hold your floor price, and as the community grows and they attract more community members, that's when you get more people believing in the project and bidding up the floor price. How do you research the community? The thing about NFT project research at the moment, I would say that it's still very qualitative. It's not quantitative. So I know for a finance audience, it can be frustrating, but that's at the moment the state of it. So with community, you need to get a sense of the vibe. Is the community actually passionate about the project mission, or are they in it just to make some quick money? If you sense that the community is just there for the quick buck, then it's not going to be a very strong project. You want to invest in projects that have longevity and are lasting. So then you have to get a sense of the community health and well-being. If they're only focused on flipping and money, it won't last long. So which is why I say, to do it properly, you have to spend a lot of time on the Discord server just to see what they're talking about. Are they talking just about floor price? Are they actually talking about project mission? Are they contributing to the project? The roadmap is one where I would say that I'm sorry. On the cynical side, I would say that every team can put out a roadmap. It's the execution of the roadmap that counts. In fact, a lot of times now you see that the roadmap is pretty generic. So you really have to go back to the team and the community for the litmus test. So I would say those are the main points for researching. I'm not inclined to talk about projects in specific, only because I feel that what I like is going to be very different from what you like, because we gravitate towards different things and different missions, and then we have different values. And also, I always feel that when it comes to buying a project, you really need to have your own conviction, because it's so volatile that if it drops a lot and you have zero or low conviction, you're going to paper hands. Paper hands is another NFT lingo. You paper hands and you sell. The opposite of paper hands is diamond hands. But if you have high conviction, then you're going to diamond hand, and see the project to its long roadmap. So I hope that answers your question.
Darren would like to know, is there a history of how many hands has an NFT actually changed? Is it possible to trace how many past owners?
Yes, you can. You can actually very easily. You can go into if you're watching a particular NFT, go into OpenSea. So OpenSea is OPENSEA.io. Make sure you're on the right website, okay? Because sometimes you get fake websites nowadays. So make sure you're on the right website, OpenSea.io. And if you click on a particular project and there's a price activity, and you can actually see the trading history of particular NFTs. So yes, it's transparent. You can see it.
Would you be able to share any relevant use cases for activism using NFTs?
Oh, yes. So many. Okay. I'll share one or two from a political ones, and let me share these two first. So Julian Assange last month. So Julian Assange, if some of you know, he's still stuck in some prison in the UK, trying to fight being extradited to the US for WikiLeaks. And so last month, he sold an NFT and raised over 50 million for his legal cases. Last year, Edward Snowden did an NFT and he raised over 5 million, and he donated all the proceeds to Free Press Foundation. I minted an NFT last month in February, and it was by this generative artist called Dmitry Chernak. And all the proceeds from that mint went to the New York Food Bank. So these are some examples of NFTs for activism. Recently, I've discovered a very interesting area of activism NFTs from people who are using NFTs to raise money for environmental causes. And if you look up this website called greenverse.world, you see that it's still in its infancy. So I'm not sure how it's going to go, but they're trying out this new idea of instead of play to earn. Just now we talked about play to earn with gaming NFTs, right? This particular project is trying to use the concept of preserve to earn. So the NFT is tied to the physical preservation of a particular area in Greenland. So I'm increasingly hearing and seeing more of people using NFTs to further environmental causes, not just political and social causes.
Okay, great. Can you explain a little bit more about copyright theft on NFTs? How is it being carried out when NFTs are non-fungible and ownership can be traced?
Yeah, so copyright theft is it can happen in a lot of ways. So it can be like, for example, let's say you are a digital illustrator and you've got some art that is available on the internet, right? Somebody just take a screen grab of that and they mint that on the blockchain. So you didn't approve of it, but the person, the scammer, minted it anyway. So it happens quite a lot, and it's a tricky one. There's no good solution to it yet. I mean, there is, for example, on Twitter, there is an account called NFT Theft, and on that account, they try to help artists whose art has been illegally minted that way by giving them advice like, okay, if you're an artist and you actually haven't minted your art, tell everyone you haven't minted your art. So if they bought it, it's actually a copy. The other way is to actually, for the artists themselves, and a lot of them do it. So if they discover that their art has been illegally minted without their approval and sold on a platform, so what the artists do is that they will go and alert the platform and say, look, I didn't mint this, please take it off. So, and that happens as well, and the platforms will take it off. But, the reality of it is it's kind of playing whack-a-mole. The artists are really playing whack-a-mole with people who are stealing their art. There was even a case where, the artist had passed away, and the thieves basically minted the art of a dead artist, and it took her brother to try to correct the crime.
So Fui Ang had a follow-up question, like, so can she then use the Bored Ape NFT as her personal profile pic and,
yes,
for example, right-click save without paying a single cent?
Oh, you can. But the thing is, will you be as cool? I mean, it's a little bit like, if I carry a fake Birkin bag and if other people think it's a Birkin bag, then it's fine. Yeah, totally. You can totally right-click save a Bored Ape and use it as your avatar. And unless that particular owner comes after you, but I don't think they will. They won't enforce it, and they know that they're the rightful owner anyway. I think it's a. The thing is now, actually, you can. So, for example, let's say I keep mentioning Twitter and Discord because if you're into NFTs, you spend a lot of time on Twitter and Discord. On your Twitter, you know how you can have your profile picture, right? So a lot of the NFT owners now, they use their NFTs as their profile pictures. Now, Twitter already has a function where they can verify whether you actually own that NFT. So if you put a fake NFT, put a right-click save Bored Ape on your Twitter profile, then you won't get that verified shape around your profile picture. So yeah, it's no one's stopping you from right-click saving and enjoying a Bored Ape. You can print it off, you can put it in your house. In fact, that's the thing as well. You don't actually need to spend so much money and appreciate NFT. You could right-click save a lot of things and put it at home and enjoy it. Of course, it's only those who are obsessed with having ownership of it and being able to trade it who need to own the real thing.
Okay, Mark would like to understand a little bit more about the legal framework behind NFTs. So he says that today, property rights are part of local law or legislation. For NFTs, where there are less structure and perimeters, what is the
Yeah.
underlying legal framework that will apply?
Yeah, I feel like I'm not a lawyer, so I won't be able to answer this question fairly. And I also feel like it's now being tested in different countries, so it would be how the individual cases in the different country strike out the conclusion of those deals. In my longer class, I looked at the cases that I mentioned in passing just now. They are US centric cases. In Singapore, there was a first NFT case that appeared in the press last month, and this case was not about property. It's actually not about IP rights at all. It was breach of duty. So I would say that we're very early on in terms of knowing what the legal boundaries are for NFTs, and I think we just have to keep an eye on how these cases are going to cement where those boundaries are. But it's a developing story, and I don't think there's anything conclusive at the moment. So that's why it's something that one needs to know. But even after you know it, you don't know about enforceability just yet.
On that point, an anonymous attendee came in with this question about what are the liabilities if something goes wrong or somebody uses your NFT to commit a crime?
That's a very good question. At the moment, I don't see any punishment yet. It's very hard to catch. I haven't, yeah. I mean, for example, let's talk about that. The part about if someone had copied your art NFT and sold it on OpenSea. OpenSea kicks you out, but you don't need to. You're not punished for anything. So it's yeah, and I think that's why it's encouraging so many scams.
Right. There's a question on what exactly is mining and why should people who are involved in ESG be concerned?
Right. Okay. So okay, I'll just try to answer this question very briefly because it can actually go on for quite long. I don't know how familiar you are with blockchains, but there's proof of work is the one where we do more heavy mining because you need a lot more computing resources. So Bitcoin and Ethereum at the moment, they use proof of work mining. And there's a lot of data that shows that mining through proof of work is higher energy usage versus proof of stake chains. Sorry, what was the question again? Why is it important, is it?
Why would people, why is there an ESG concern tied to it?
Oh, okay. So the ESG concern is due to the higher energy consumption of proof of work mining. So what they're saying is like, if we need to use so much energy to create NFT art, is it really worth it? That's what they're asking. And it's actually a very pertinent question. It's one of those things I've noticed that I find that it's more the creators who are more concerned with using things like Ethereum to create their art. Whereas when you're a collector, because your wealth is denominated in Ethereum anyway, a lot of the crypto natives, they bought ETH early, right? And they're denominated in ETH. So they want to continue having their wealth in Ethereum. So yeah, the answer to your question is because of the high energy consumption using Ethereum. That's why ESG, that's why people who are concerned with ESG are concerned about NFT creation on Ethereum.
Okay, there is a crystal ball question. Do you see a future in DAO?
Oh, yes, for sure. I think DAOs are really, really exciting. And And there's so many versions of DAOs now. There are DAOs that are set up for investments. There are DAOs that are set up to collect. There are DAOs that are set up for education, etc., etc., etc. I mean, you just have to think about DAOs as a very new and novel way for people to organize themselves. Now, I mean, DAOs are supposed to be a very decentralized version compared to a typical company setup, which is centralized and hierarchical. I would say that depending on the work that you're trying to do, sometimes it pays to be in a more centralized format, and sometimes it pays to be a more decentralized format. But at the moment, I would say that DAOs are just very, very exciting, and we're going to see a lot of it. And to be honest, DAOs will be a whole class in itself, which hopefully we get to do sometime in the future.
Okay, there's a question on recently there was announcement that NFT transactions could be taxed. What is your view?
I think it's the same thing that they're treating crypto. Like if you are buying it as a collector, it's like if you're buying it as a collector, you're buying it as art, right? But if you are trading NFTs like it's your job, then I think it's common that the IRA will treat it as a taxable event if you're trading it. And I mean, in our class here, because we are thinking about NFTs just as to a normie crowd, to a regular crowd, we're not talking about it as a trading thing. There are people who trade it, but it's a really different ballgame altogether. I mean, if you're trading NFTs, you really have to be of a very different risk appetite. Your time horizon is very different. The tools you use are also very different. I mean, there are some specialized paying tools that you can use to be a trader. And it's a very, very different ballgame to just, buying art for fun or buying NFTs for fun.
Okay, I think we have time for just a couple more. So there's this question on how can we protect our address seed phrase? What other tips do you have to safeguard our NFTs?
That's a very good question. I think about it a lot. It's a very important question, and I think depending on how you live and where you live, the answer might vary. You really have to think about all the possibilities that can happen. Will your house get burned down? Will you be robbed? So all these things have to think about. Like, just to give you an example, you probably know about the Winklevoss twins, right? The very famous twins, the ones that had a fight with Mark Zuckerberg at Facebook. And I remember reading a book about them, and they were very early in Bitcoin, right? And one of the ways they protected their seed phrases was, the funny thing, the irony of it all is that although we're dealing with high-tech stuff, the easiest ways to protect your seed phrase is very analog and very old-fashioned. So what they did was they actually wrote the seed phrases on pieces of paper, and they deposited it into they went to different regions of the US and opened safety boxes in the banks, and they deposited their seed phrases there. That's how extreme it is. But that's how they thought about it. So I would say, like, one of the things that you want to think about as well is like writing it on paper is not a good thing because paper disintegrates. You want to look at some of those steel plates, really solid steel plates that can stand the test of time, and you kind of hammer your seed phrase into the steel plates. And then you really have to think very hard where you're going to hide your seed phrase, your steel plates. And then you also want to think about backup. You just don't want to keep one copy. If that one copy is lost, then it's very, very sad.
Okay, I think we have come to the end of today's session. I think we're at 4:30. Because there are still about 16 questions.
Oh,
but
wow.
I think
okay.
you've covered quite a bit of ground. And we're just going to, we'll be happy to share the slides as well as the recording with participants after maybe Sandy takes a look at it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
sure. So thank you guys for joining us. I really hope it was, you learned something from it. And I hope that we, at least, as I said, debunk the right-click save fallacy, I hope, or maybe not, because there was still that question about it. But thank you very much for your time.
Yes. So thank you once again, Sandy, for that very, very interesting and exciting session. I'm sure for those who are keen to find out more, they would be happy to just reach out to Sandy, and also maybe consider signing up for that program, that one-day program where you can learn a lot more. So right now on screen, we have some QR codes for you in case you want to be kept updated on future events. Do scan this QR code and sign up for our mailing list. And with that, thank you so much everyone for joining us, and we hope to see you at our next session. Thanks once again, Sandy.
Thank
And
you. Thank you, Florence.
everybody.
Thank you very much,
you.
everybody.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.